Upon assuming responsibility for an ongoing project, a project manager conducts a thorough review of the project's documentation and outcome. This review reveals that the project has not been adhering to established organization standards. Okay. Furthermore, it becomes apparent that a compliance audit, which could have identified these discrepancies early on, was never got conducted for this project. In the light of this situation, what is the most appropriate initial action for the project manager to take? So you joined a project, a good proactive project manager end up doing thorough review of the documentation, identifying the gaps. You realize that organization standards are not followed, and you also realize the compliance audit was not done before. So this is the information. Now the question is asking, what do you do as a project manager? Here it's an ongoing project. Option A, reach out to the project management office, PMO, to inquire about the reasons behind the project's deviation from compliance standards. I can do that, possibly. I can understand, what is the story behind these non-adherence. So one thing you need to be very clear, the question is not showing that there is a tailoring around it. Yeah, the question is showing that there is something not adhering to the compliance, which could have identified in a compliance audit also, which means that something has to be followed is not getting followed. Now, I go to PMO and asking why it has not been done. Probably they not have the information about it, and it may be not a best thing to do. Yeah, I probably need to look into if I have a better option than directly going to PMO and saying, this project is not meeting compliances and why it is happening. Yeah, so probably that's an alternative, but not a good one. Option B, engage with the project team and the key stakeholders to strategize on realigning the project with the organization standards. So it is like, oh, we face the problem, we have looked at the problem, now we need to do something about it. We need to correct this problem. And in order to correct it, I need to figure it out. How do I work with stakeholders, which can include PMO people also. So some amount of A is included here. I can involve my project team also, and I may share my findings to them and say, this is what I am observing. What should we do? How do we bring this alignment back to our compliances or organization standards? Looks like a great idea. Let's see if we have a better than this particular idea in our other options. Option C, notify the compliance group to initiate an audit of the project, focusing on assessing its adherence to the compliance requirements. I can do that. Yeah, that's a possibility. But this thing is not directly addressing the situation at hand. The situation at hand is I discovered that we are not adhering to the compliances and I need to do something about it, rather than I want a verification from someone else and says, yeah, you do it and then I will figure it out later. What should I do about it? So option C is not taking direct responsibility of this particular non-adherence, and probably I trying to highlight this issue before I work on it. Some of us may end up doing in our real work environment. We can say, it was an old project. I want to understand how bad it is, and I want to get an approval from someone else to say that, yeah, this was not adhering to a compliance, and then only I want to solve the problem. Yeah, so that's option C is indicating. And some of us as a project manager might be behaving like that. But for a PMP exam, we should focus on more proactive behaving. I have a situation at hand. I don't have to prove to someone else that this is a bad situation. I'm anyway working with my team and stakeholders who will provide me the right information. If I'm thinking too much about the non-adherence and I might be wrongly interpreting it, they will correct me. And if we figure it out, how do we do it and we move forward with that? That's an option B. So option C is not necessary to be taken in this particular situation. Option D, arrange a meeting with the previous project manager to discuss the lapses in compliance during their tenure. So usually whenever you have a transitioning happening, you should have taken a transitioning then and there. You have a situation at hand. You need to own it. Now again, why it has happened, why you have not reported it before is not generally accepted as a good idea, because you are delaying the problem solving, and we can assume that project manager may not be available here, and trying to figure out someone who has already transitioned your work and hoping that they will provide you the right information, and you are getting into the discussion mode and trying to prove that this person is not doing, has not done the right job, may not be a good idea. If you are in the process of transitioning, then you definitely understand. We can say that we have a handover timing and you observe something, you want to understand the perspective of project manager also, because he's not yet handed over the project to you. You can definitely discuss that. But since this question is not very clearly indicating it's an ongoing handover or later handover, so I can better focus on B because it may work in both the situation. It may work in a current handover process also or a later stage also. If the question indicates me clearly that you are in the process of taking over, then probably I will choose option D. But since that thing is not indicated in the question, I still recommend we go with option B. Now, if we talk about our ECO, this is basically focusing on the plan and manage project compliance. It's a business domain first task, a pretty critical one. It will give you a few questions. And then the topics we discussed about is a project compliance. We refer to compliance audit and working with the overall or strategizing how do we work with people. That's kind of thing we covered, but basically project compliance and compliance audit.